Today we're going to go over 10 of the coolest and neatest digital cameras that I picked up over the last few weeks, including this really awesome Fujifilm camera that was designed by F.A. Porsche, who was the famous designer of the Porsche 911. Anyway, back to the camera. This is a camera that was released in 2001. It actually has really quite good reviews from DP Review in a 2001 article that I found. Brought some style and swagger to this digital camera. It's got an aluminum magnesium alloy body, and when you turn it on, it's got this cool retracting cover. It also has this cool color display. Hello. Before it turns off, at least. And it's got a display here that is pretty neat, and it has a little flash that you pop right here to open. So because it has a CCD sensor, the colors on this are really quite vibrant. I've taken a few pictures of this right before the battery decided to give out, and unfortunately this battery is not really charging anymore because it's original to the camera. It's a Fujifilm Finepix NP80 battery. So I'm going to try to find a brand new replacement battery and get it in this camera and hopefully take some additional pictures with it because it looks really fun to shoot with. And it's got a story to tell. It's actually pretty lightweight because of that body style that Porsche made. You would expect it to be really heavy in the hand, but it's rather lightweight, even with the battery inside. The memory type this uses is Smart Media. And it has a Smart Media card in there from when I was taking pictures before. This is a whopping 16 megs, and it'll hold a few dozen pictures in this camera. This camera records to either 1 megapixel, 3 megapixel, or 6 megapixels. And when it does 6 megapixels, it's kind of doing a similar thing to your TV when you go from 30 to 60 to 120 frames per second, where it actually inserts additional pixels to get to that 6 megapixel rating. Very interesting. It's not something that was done for a very long period to my knowledge. It's very easy to see pixelation with this camera when you're viewing it on a computer now. But back when displays were very low resolution, this was about cream of the crop for a point and shoot camera. And this 3 megapixel, if you print it out at 3 megapixel, would print out at 8x10 just fine. So how much did I pay for this camera? I actually bought this camera for about 30 bucks. It was with a few other cameras that came in a lot, but once you averaged out the pricing, it was about $30 for this camera. And this camera in the used market in good working condition with some accessories, which I have here. We've got the cradle. I have a USB cable down on the ground, and it actually has the original owner's manual, which has some coffee stains or something. But what I found interesting is it's actually signed on the back, handwritten by the managing director of Düsseldorf, Germany, Fujifilm. Pretty interesting. A little bit of provenance there. So if I were to sell all of this as a kit and get a new battery, which I will do, this is going to be worth about $150 in the used market in the United States. All right, next up, we've got a Nikon D7000. And this is actually with the kit 18 to 105 lens. They sold this a few varieties of ways with a couple different types of lenses, the body alone. When this came out in 2010, it was at the very high end of the consumer line. So not a professional camera, but the most expensive consumer line DSLR camera that you could get. It's got a magnesium alloy body, it's got weather sealing, and it's upgraded to 39 focus points for autofocus. So for regular still photography, it does a really, really nice job. It also is capable of shooting 1080p at 24 frames per second in somewhat limited video clips. Nikon at this point in 2010 wasn't up to snuff with Canon when it comes to video technology. And they've really drastically improved over the last few years with their mirrorless line. So this camera, when it came out, I believe was around $1,000 retail price point. Maybe a little bit less than that, maybe a little bit more. If you bought this when it was new, leave a comment down below. You can tell me exactly how much you paid for it. But I've really enjoyed shooting with the D7000 over the years. In the last 10 years, I just looked, I've sold over 40 D7000 bodies. and I've seen them anywhere from a shutter count of 20 to a shutter count of 180,000. So really big variety. I believe Nikon rated the shutter to around 100 to 200,000 actuations. I've actually taken some pictures with this because I got this in a few weeks ago, and the shutter count of this body is, let me see, 6,600. So this camera has a lot of life left to give. Most of the D7000s that you'll see on websites like eBay, at least in the United States, are going to have shutter counts 50 to 100K plus. So this is a particular model that has a very low shutter count. It's got a nice working, kind of good all-around kit lens to it, and it's ready to shoot. Another cool thing about the D7000, it actually has dual SD slots. Pretty handy if you're on an extended shoot, but I really like shooting with this. It's really nice. Plus, this body is compatible with basically every Nikon F-mount lens that was made, including older manual versions. So super nice to have. It's just a really, really well-built camera, and I've enjoyed shooting with it throughout the years. So I spent $165 on this camera, and given the low shutter count, if I was to sell the body and the lens, I would list it for right around $330. It's a great first DSLR camera to use even now, 14 years after its original release. And as you can see from the pictures that I popped up, it still takes really nice pictures. Alright, next up we've got a Canon Rebel SL1 DSLR camera with a Canon 55 to 250 STM IS lens. This is not the kit lens that originally sold with. The kit lens with the SL1 was the 18 to 55mm STM lens. Fortunately, that's a really big upgrade because this lens is probably my favorite Canon EFS lens for its price point. This sells for $299 new, and in the used market you can find it in the $140 to $160 range in great shape. This covers a wide variety of focal points and is super fast and super smooth, and actually produces a little bit of bokeh. I took quite a few pictures with this outside, and I'll flash them up on the screen right now so you can get an idea of what this camera is capable of. The Canon Rebel SL1 was released in 2013, so this camera is 11 years old. I actually sold this camera new when I was working at an e-tailer during this time frame. It's a crop sensor 18 megapixel camera. Its claim to fame is really its diminutive size. It's a very lightweight and the most compact DSLR camera that Canon had made up to this point. So if you have really big hands like me, it makes it look actually much smaller than, say, a Canon EOS 20D, 30D, 40D, which is a way bigger camera. So pretty small, and if you're a youngster, if you have smaller hands, it's a lot more ergonomical than the big chunky DSLR camera bodies. And it retained, I believe, a Digic 5 processor, so the focus and picture quality is actually quite good in this camera. So I paid $140 for this kit, and the Rebel SL1 in good working condition like it is going to have a value of right around $125. And this Canon 55 to 250 STM lens, it's in good working shape as well, is going to have a value of about $150. Probably the number one question I get asked is, where do I find all these cameras? And I buy these and everything I get from a variety of sources. I get them from pawn shops, garage sales, estate sales, online auctions, physical auctions, private party sales, big collections. The list goes kind of on and on. I've sourced from so many different locations over the years. It's just kind of a mixture of all of those, and you just have to be kind of tenacious and be willing to spend a lot of time trying to find the great deals. That's what I do anyway. Regardless of whether it's cameras or if you're interested in computers or anything else, it's just very time consuming to find them in the first place. Next up, this I definitely wanted to share with you all because it's not a camera I get in a bunch. It's a Panasonic DMC GH5. And if you know me, I do rather enjoy Micro Four Thirds cameras. I've sold this, by my calculations, about a half a dozen times, but I've sold the GH1, the prior version, the GH2, GH3, GH4, a combination of those over 100 times. So I'm pretty familiar with the GH series. I've done both video and still shooting with it over the years. And this was a really cool kit to pick up because it's a lens that I don't often use, which is the Rokinon Cine lenses, and it was just kind of fun to shoot in a lot of manual situations. This isn't the most expensive lens. It's a 35mm t1.5, and on this crop sensor, it's closer to a 50mm equivalent. And that's a really, really good range for me because in my YouTube videos, I like to shoot right in that range. So I actually shot a couple of YouTube videos using this lens a couple weeks ago on my GH5S body that I use for filming. So that was great. The glass on this is excellent. I didn't know the shutter count on this because the battery was dead, but I bought it from a reputable source that I could have returned if I had needed to. But fortunately, everything is working here. And this has been just really, like I said, really fun to shoot with. The autofocus on the GH5 isn't great, but for my filming needs, it really works great. And this is a manual focus lens anyway, so it doesn't matter. And I took some pictures with this camera as well. I'll include them up on the screen. Really a fun lens to shoot with. The shutter actuation count for the GH5, generally in the 100 to 200,000 range. And there's a hidden menu actually in this camera. So I'm gonna go through that real quick. You turn it on. And take a picture. And then turn it back off. I'm following the prompts here because there's a number of different steps. And then we are going to hit playback AFE lock and then turn it on at the same time. And playback is here. AFE lock is there. AFE lock on. So it's definitely a two-handed operation. We did that. And now it's in a temporary service mode. And then I'm going to click playback menu set left. Playback menu set left. And there we go. And now we've got the hidden menu and it's going to show all of our details here. So we've got a power count of 3,171. And we've got a shutter count of 17,991. So plenty of life left in this. The on-off has been hit, like I said, 3,171 times. So probably used for some filming by the prior owner. I don't know much history of its prior use, but for me, still a completely functionable and serviceable camera. And I spent $400 on this kit with the lens, and the value of the body alone with the shutter count that it has is going to be right around $600 with free shipping, and the lens is going to be in the $150 range. So we're looking at $750 from a purchase of $400. So once you factor in all the fees and the shipping costs and all the other expenses, it's a profit of a couple $100, which is excellent. And it should move pretty quickly for me, given that both of these are still pretty desirable in today's market. Okay, next up, we're moving from big DSLR cameras and micro four thirds cameras to a tiny diminutive Canon Powershot ELPH. And this is a Canon Powershot ELPH 135. And I've been getting a lot of like ELPH 160s, 70s, 80s, 90s lately. I haven't come across an ELPH 115 or 135 in a while, especially in this good a shape. So a lot of the times with my older Canon Powershot cameras, if you've seen any of my prior videos, they often have a lot of wear. So these are kind of cool because a lot of these cameras I bought at higher prices and they were tested. So there's very little risk, and if I can, I like to buy stuff that's in great shape because the resale value is higher. So this is a camera that also is almost 10 years old, I believe, but really looks almost as good as the day it was made. The finish is still super glossy and great. It uses the Canon NB11L battery, which is a very common battery. I got a replacement in there for now, and regular SD. And this is a camera that is very slim. It's got an 8x optical zoom and takes really, really good pictures. So it's gotten more popular over the last few years. I used to sell this camera in the $70 to $80 range 4 or 5 years ago. It's actually gone up quite a bit, and in this great condition with a charger and a cable and a card, you'd be looking at probably close to $150. And I spent $60 on this. So really great return on investment here. Another question I get a lot is about boxes, and unfortunately a lot of the inventory I get doesn't come with a box, although I do have 3 down here that you saw in the intro that do have boxes, and boxes do add some value. especially to collectors of specific models that literally try to get every camera ever manufactured from that brand. And they have giant collections. So just like game collecting or sports card collecting, there are people that collect cameras. And especially as these cameras are getting now 10, 15, 20, 25 years old, we're kind of heading into that collectible time frame, which is a little bit odd because I started my career selling a lot of these cameras brand new. So it's kind of come full circle. Okay, next up. This is a camera that I included just because I get so many of them. This is probably the camera that I see the most of, and it's because it was widely sold by like Walmart and Amazon and a bunch of other brick and mortar retailers as well as online sellers, and it was made for a couple-year period. It's a Sony DSC H300, and it's a bridge camera that uses AA batteries, and it's got a really nice 35x optical zoom. So I know a lot of you are more professional photographers, but having a little bridge camera like this, just to be able to get some extended optical range if you don't want to lug all your gear around, can be kind of handy to have. And this one's in really nice shape. This camera actually has a pretty nice flash for indoor use and takes short HD clips as well. In terms of value, I think that in the used market, this is one of the best values there is. I sell this camera in the $80 to $110 range depending on condition. This one I would peg probably right around 100, and I spent 40 bucks on it. So about double my money after fees and expenses, and that's a good profit. And I'm sure this has years of use left in it. So I like to pass stuff along if I can. All right, next up we have a Casio EXZ50 digital camera. And this is a camera that I spent about 10 bucks on. It is in the box, and it looks fantastic. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to charge the battery yet, and I haven't tested it, so I don't know if the battery has any juice. So let's go ahead and pull it out, see what the cosmetic condition looks like, and hopefully it's got a charge. It also has the cradle that originally came in, the charging cradle, and the power adapter as well as the instructions. Appears to be in really, really, really nice shape. So cosmetic condition looks excellent. Tiny bit of wear along the edges, but at least physically it looks to be in very good condition. There is a battery in there as well as a 2 gig SD card. This is a 5 megapixel camera that Casio released, 15 plus years ago now. So the fact that it still comes in its original box and it's in condition like this is cool. It's probably used a couple times and then put away and never used again. Unfortunately, there is no charge on this, but this is a camera that if you found it in fair working condition would only have a value of, say, $20, $25. But given that it comes with all of the original accessories in the box, you suddenly go from 25 to probably a value closer to 60 to 70, assuming everything is working well. So I'll test this one later once I get it charged up with the cradle, and hopefully it's working and we'll get some good pictures out of it. But anytime I see a camera with its original box, I will try to pick it up, even if it's a brand that I don't normally buy a ton of, like Casio. Let's do a DSLR next. We've got a Canon Rebel T6. This is, as I've said in some of my other videos, one of the most popular DSLR cameras that Canon ever made. It's an 18 megapixel camera that takes really nice still pictures, has some video capability as well. Was released, I think, around 10 years ago now, but I've been pretty pleased with the performance of this camera. I've done some testing with it and a bunch of different Canon lenses, like the 85mm, the 50mm 1.4, and despite a kind of limited autofocus, it takes really nice pictures. I'll flash some up on the screen of what I've taken with the Rebel T6 because they actually look great. This one is in really nice shape. It comes with a battery but no charger, so I was able to test it because it was charged. The flash is firing, the autofocus is working well. The thing I noticed with a lot of older Canon 18 to 55 IS lenses is the autofocus can sometimes have issues. So that is something that I will try to check if I'm able to test a camera. But this is a camera that I sell a couple of a week now because I've been sourcing a bunch of them lately. And this camera generally sells in the $210 range, and I spent $100 on this Rebel T6. So a little less than doubling my money once you factor in all the expenses. And this is a camera that remains quite popular to this day. We've got 2 box cameras left. We've got a Canon Powershot ELPH, and this is an ELPH 300. And it's got a charger, cables, and a camera in there. And this came in a variety of colors. You'll often see black as the most common, as well as red and silver. I've got the silver version here. This is also known as the 220HS in Europe. Sorry, I need to be better about doing the European models for all my European friends out there. I apologize. I've been trying to do that, but I've been failing largely. So keep reminding me in those comments down below. Kevin, make sure you put the European version. I'll try to do so if I'm able to. This camera is in good physical shape. It has a little bit of normal wear, but nothing, nothing terrible. Let's go ahead and power it on. Pretty noisy, and that's common with the ELPH 300 is some lens noise. If you think the ELPH 300 is noisy, you should listen to the ELPH 110. It's a whole nother camera. Flash fires. This thing takes really nice pictures. It's nothing fancy. 12 megapixels, released 14 years ago, I believe. But it's got quite the following these days. This camera with the box, which adds a fair amount of value, is going to have a value in the $150 range. And again, this is a camera that 4 or 5 years ago, when I was still selling the same camera, was about half the price. So it has definitely gone up over the last few years. Okay, last camera that I thought was pretty cool because it's a model I don't see a ton of, and it's the Nikon Coolpix S640. So I see a bunch of the S610, S600, and S630, but rarely the S640, and never with the original box and accessories. So let's take a look. Got cable, instructions, no charger actually, but I have some replacement chargers. I do try to keep replacement chargers to include if I'm able to. But this 640 looks to be in pretty good shape. It's a 12 megapixel with a 5x optical zoom. Released about the same time as that ELPH 300. I want to say this was in 2009. Okay, got a new battery. Got the new battery put in, and the camera does power on. The lens moves out. Glass is good. I got this one from the same place that I got the Casio, so hopefully the Casio is working just like this one. Lens is moving out smoothly. Let's try taking a picture. I haven't actually taken any pictures with this yet. Yeah, that looks nice. Let's bring the flower out. Never know when you need a fake flower. Okay, that looks good. It looks exactly like pictures from the S630. Wonder of wonders. So this is in good working shape. Actually, I would say this is very good condition once I get the LCD cleaned off a little bit. It's in really, really excellent shape. So pair this with a charger and all of the accessories that are already in here. And the value of the S640 in really great working condition, there's not a ton of them on the market, but around $100 for this camera. So that was the last camera of the 10 most interesting cameras that I've seen this week. Had some really cool stuff from that Porsche camera to the GH5 and everything in between. This is a little different style of a video for me as opposed to the untested camera unboxing lots that I normally do. Let me know in the comments if you like it. If you want to see more of this, maybe I could make it a weekly or a monthly thing. Leave a comment down below. As always, really appreciate it, and thanks for watching.